This video tutorial is designed to give you some tips in citing sources in APA format. First, you do not want to include the name of the journal in your citation. The examples you see on your screen are actually incorrect. Hewitt, O'Neill, and Moore, 2010, wrote in the journal College English that you don't want to include in the journal College English. The next example is also not correct. In College English, Hewitt, O'Neill, and Moore, 2010, argued that the phrase in College English is not included according to APA convention. Please note that if you're writing a critique essay or a response essay for a particular class, your instructor may ask you to identify the name of the author and the article and journal in the opening paragraph. That practice is in response to a specific writing assignment, but other than in cases like those in which the specific writing assignment asks you to identify title and journal, you would not include such information. As you can see, only the last names of the authors and the year are included here. Furthermore, don't include the title of the article unless necessary. The examples you see on your screen are actually not correct. Hewitt, O'Neill, and Moore, 2010, wrote in their article a usable pass for writing assessment. In their article, a usable pass for writing assessment is not appropriate to include in the citation. Furthermore, the second example is also incorrect. In their article, a usable pass for writing assessment, Hewitt, O'Neill, and Moore, 2010, argued that the opening phrase identifying the name of the article is not appropriate. Again, if you're writing a critique essay or a response essay, your instructor may ask you to identify the name of the author and article in the opening paragraph of the essay. That practice is in response to that specific writing assignment, but in general, in APA citation, you don't include the name of the article. There might be cases in which there is no author to an article, so you have to cite the source using the name of the article. That situation will be discussed later in the lecture. When you quote a source, give the author, year, and page number. Here we see the writer citing a source named Han, who wrote an article in 2015. The page from which this quote is taken is page 265, so you can see the quote followed by an ending quote and then the parenthetical citation, followed by the closing period. If the quotation occurs within the sentence, you then cite the source using parentheses right after the ending quotation marks and then continue the sentence. Here the writer is citing the same source, Han, but the quotation is occurring within the sentence. The author starts with his own text. In correcting misunderstandings in gamification and education, Han, 2015, noted that. Then the quote begins. The quote ends with the word learning, followed by the page number in parentheses, then a comma. Then the author continues his text, thus making the case that. If you quote a source to end a sentence, you simply end the passage with the closing quotation marks, cite the source in parentheses, and then end with your period or other punctuation mark. Here the author writes his own text. Other scholars have refuted this view, maintaining that gamification in education is. Then he starts to quote Han, not about, etc., etc. The quote ends with the word learning, then Han is cited in parentheses, followed by the year and page number, and the period occurs at the end. For quotations that are 40 or more words, you want to place the text that is quoted into a block of text without using quotation marks. You want to indent the block of text 1/2 inch from the left margin. This screen capture shows how a block of text might be integrated into a paper. The writer of the paper writes her own words. Others have countered this argument, then proceeds by quoting the author. Note that the double spacing is maintained, and the author of the article is cited at the end of the quote. Occasionally you might be quoting online material that doesn't have page numbers, perhaps a website. In this case, cite the author, year, and paragraph number using the abbreviation PARA period. Here the writer of the paper is citing a source named Kelly from 2010. The student integrates Kelly into the sentence and then starts the quote. In the field of gamification, designers, consultants, theoreticians, and idea men, etc., etc. The quote ends with the phrase meaning of things, followed by the paragraph noted in parentheses. Sometimes websites have section headings. If you are quoting text from a website that has section headings, include the author, year, and title of the section heading, followed by the paragraph number. Here the writer of the paper cites a source named Boitnott from 2010. The quote starts here with the phrase in some industries, it ends with the phrase talent development, and then you see in parentheses the section heading, gamification going global, followed by the word section, followed by the paragraph number. In this case, paragraph 1 means it's the first paragraph in that section. The following are some other helpful tips in citing sources with various author situations. You might be integrating a source into your paper that has one author. Here are 3 ways in which one author could be integrated. Sipple 2010 found that students preferred audio commentary. Here we have the name of the author integrated into the sentence, so only the year is included in parentheses. The second example does not integrate the name of the author into the sentence, so both the name of the author and the year are in parentheses. The third example is somewhat rare. Both the year and the author's name are integrated into the sentence. Nothing is included in parentheses in this case. If you're citing more than one author in a paragraph, make sure that the reader of the paper understands what information came from which author. However, if you're only citing one work by one author in a paragraph, you don't have to include the date every time you mention that author's name. Here's an example in which Sipple's paper is cited throughout the paragraph. In the first sentence, Sipple is mentioned, and the year 2007 is put in parentheses after her name. In the second sentence, Sipple is mentioned, but no year is included. We know that it's the same paper from Sipple from the previous sentence. The last sentence shows Sipple's name and year in parentheses. The reason for this is that APA requires that you use the year whenever you cite the author's last name in parentheses. You'll never have just the author's last name in parentheses. If you have the author's last name in parentheses, it will be followed by the year. If a work has 2 authors, cite both authors every time you cite the source, but make sure you use the word and or the symbol for and correctly. You use the word and whenever you're integrating the author's names into your sentence. You use the symbol for and whenever you're citing both authors in parentheses. If a work has 3, 4, or 5 authors, cite each author's name the first time you cite the source, but when you cite it again, cite only the first author's last name, followed by the phrase et al., including the period. If you happen to cite the source again in the paper in a different paragraph, use the first author's last name, et al., and the year. This practice is demonstrated in the following screen capture. The writer of this essay cites a paper by Ice, Swan, Diaz, Kopczynski, and Swan-Dagan from the year 2010. All 5 authors' names are included the first time the source is cited. In the next sentence, only Ice is included, with the phrase et al. However, when the source is cited again in another paragraph, the year 2010 is included. Ice et al. 2010. The year is included this time because the source is being cited in a new paragraph. If a work has 6 or more authors, cite the last name of the first author, followed by et al. You'll do this every time you cite the source, and you'll cite the year every time you cite the source as well, no matter whether you're citing the source in a new paragraph or not. Keep in mind that when you list the source in your references list at the end of your paper, you will provide all 6 authors' names. It's just when you're citing it in the paper that you use only the first author's last name, followed by et al. If you happen to have 2 authors with the same last name, simply include the author's first initial whenever you cite the source. You do this even if the year of publication is different between the 2 authors. In this example, an author named Jeff Summers and an author named Nancy Summers are both cited in a paper. Note that the letter J for Jeff and the letter N for Nancy are included. If you have a source that does not identify an author or has an anonymous author, you would cite the text using the first few words of the reference entry. Here is a situation in which a website is cited, but the website has no author. The name of the website is The Beginner's Guide to Gamification, so that's what's included in the parenthetical information. Keep in mind that whatever words begin your parenthetical information are the same words that will begin your reference list entry. Notice that at the top, the parenthetical information begins with the name of the website, The Beginner's Guide to Gamification. When the writer of the paper cited the source in his references list, he used the same phrase to begin the reference list entry, The Beginner's Guide to Gamification. The reader of your paper should be able to look at the text that you used in parentheses and immediately find that same text in the first words of the source listed in your references list. Hopefully these tips have been helpful as you integrate sources using APA format. Thanks very much.